Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026, and I'm Angela here with Regina with WPF and Charly with Unicorn Millionaire. What's your specific Traveler Charly? I feel like you've got lots of names. We met Charly through the money nerd online space and got to meet them in person last fall in Portland at FinCon and just, have lots of good conversations and ask them to come talk to the WPF community because I think they've got a really great story. And I think it's really important that, we don't just talk to folks that are making a bunch of money and doing big stuff with their money because you can also do some awesome stuff even without a really massive salary. And just like you're a fun human to be around too. So it's always
Oh,
fun to have somebody that we personally enjoy hanging with come talk to our audience. So, Charly, if you want to introduce yourself for the WPF community.
awesome. Thank you. I love hanging out with you guys as well. We've met in person once, but I love following you, and you are so good at creating engagement and stirring the pot in the best anti-capitalist way. So I'm super happy to be here. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Charly Stoever, and today I'm going to teach y'all about how to, it says cush debt. Okay. Crush debt, boost credit, and build a six-figure retirement without a six-figure salary. As Angela mentioned, I've never made a lot of money. I've never made six figures. In fact, I've never made more than 45K, but I've already built 225-ish K net worth by 35. And I'm also a podcaster. I'm an ex-stockbroker. What am I not? I'm a stripper. I'm a full-time pet sitter. I'm a painter. Like, I'm just very creative person. And I love being creative with my
And you
money.
don't have a permanent home base these
And
days either.
I have been homeless for almost 2 years now by choice, living rent free, pet sitting from place to place, living out of one big suitcase and a small suitcase that has like my tech and my laptop and stuff. So I need to have a Netflix series where it's like Marie Kondo but gay, and I'm just like flying around helping people get rid of crap they don't need and invest in the stock market, because that's the vibe. I don't dream of labor, and I don't think any of us do. And I'm just out here to help people stack whatever cash they make in the best ways. So thanks for having me.
Before we get started, too, we forgot we need to talk about disclaimers. So, FYI, WPF, myself, and Regina are not financial advisors. None of this should be seen as specific investing advice. This is just, we're a couple of long term money nerds that like to talk about this stuff. And even if we were financial advisors, we're not your financial advisors. So, it is important to do your own research with this stuff. But it's great to talk to money with folks who care.
Yes, this is for educational purposes only. You will learn a lot. So, a little bit about my story. I was undocumented. I was born in Mexico at age 3. I moved to rural Eastern Washington State, and grew up with a scarcity mindset, immigrant mindset of always feeling like the next shoe is going to drop and shit's going to hit the fan. Very unpredictable, unstable childhood. My parents divorced when I was 14. My dad moved back to Mexico, and I got out of my little town and got on a heavy financial aid package to study at a women's college called Wellesley College in Boston. And then I studied abroad for the first time. And it just really opened my world, literally. And since then, I became a US citizen at age 21, senior year of college. I remember being sworn in at TD Garden with a lot of like Vietnamese, Southeast Asian immigrants at TD Garden, even though I'd lived in the US like pretty much all my life. But I think it was that gratitude of, okay, I'm a citizen now and I'm not afraid of crossing borders anymore, that led me to travel to 39 countries by the time I turned 35. Um, but I always spent my 20s being overworked and underpaid. I went to college thinking I wanted to teach history, and I became a teacher, and I was not earning as much as a lot of my classmates were. I lived in my 20s doing the Peace Corps and Nicaragua for 2 years, making $300 a month, AmeriCorps, being on food stamps in San Antonio, Texas, working in education, thinking that one day something will take care of me, or if I work harder, I'll just make more money and it'll all take care of itself. And then in my late 20s, I realized that that was not true, and that I had to take charge of my own financial future. So at 27, I reached out to another Wellesley alum who I was pet sitting for in Washington, D.C., because I could not find a 9-to-5 job. There was a hiring freeze in the federal government after the Peace Corps, and I was just doing a lot of side hustling and side gigs and being underemployed for my degree. But luckily, my friend was a financial advisor, and she sat me down and in an hour changed my life. She was like, don't worry that you don't make so much. Just be grateful that you have time on your side. And she just showed me a simple chart of the stock market, and I didn't understand it, but it looked like it was going down, up and down and up and down, but over the long term it was going up. And she's like, this is all the growth you're going to miss out on if you don't start investing now. Like, just invest $1 and it's going to grow. And that changed my entire life. And so in my late 20s, I decided to work as a stockbroker at Charles Schwab with no finance background. My friend helped me get a job at Schwab, and I moved to Indianapolis, and I worked in a call center for a year, and I got my licenses and was making $45K, which is the most I've ever made still. And I remember putting half my paycheck into my 401k, being like, I'm not going to last this 9-to-5. I'm way too nervous, spicy for this shit, but I'm going to learn what I need to learn and dip out. And then when COVID hit, I was ecstatic. I was so excited for the stock market to crash, and so were all of my colleagues. And I realized this was messed up. So I wrote my grad school essay on this, that it was unfair that just because I knew how the stock market worked, it gave me an unfair advantage that so many people like me did not have. And it was just pure luck that I learned about these things and was shown the way by coincidence, not because of our educational system. So I got a free master's degree at Brandeis. It was an MBA program, and I moved to Playa del Carmen, Mexico, since I'm a dual citizen, and ended up getting my master's degree, but also paying thousands of dollars for a business coach. And luckily, the master's degree was free because it did not help me at all running a business. I remember selling 3K of Tesla stock sitting on the beach to pay for my Latina business coach, Kat Del Carmen. And it was the most money I'd ever dropped on anything ever. But I was like, I want to learn how to scale my own money coaching business. And I went from making a cute $100 here and there, coaching people through Instagram stories, helping them with their debt payoff, to making $7,500 in my first month, because I started showing up and doing Instagram lives and gave myself permission to show up authentically as me with my experience, and realized that I could connect with random people on the internet, that I could help transform their lives. So I've been working for myself as a full-time money coach for 5 years and haven't looked back since then. And I've been pretty nomadic since COVID hit. I've only lasted a few months here and there, living in places like Puerto Vallarta. I spent 7 months in Southeast Asia, bopping around, and had chronic health issues that led me to come back to the Pacific Northwest and heal. It's a very healing space. I'd spent a lot of my life chasing the summertime, and that led to chronic inflammation. So my health coach was like, you need to move somewhere with winters. So last year I decided to give the Pacific Northwest a try again. And I'm currently in Portland. So I wanted to celebrate that last week my trans Latinx self was featured on CNBC Make It. This is a really full circle moment for me, because when I worked as a stockbroker in Indianapolis, people, mostly old, rich white people, would call me, and they didn't want to Google how the stock market was doing. So they would call and say, how is the stock market today? Is it up or is it down? And I would Google it for them and be like, CNBC says the stock market is up by 20 points. Why is it up? Why is it down? Oh, the Fed's going to cut interest rates, or because there's a pandemic. So it was a really full circle moment for me to show up as a trans Latinx queer AF person on this website that's pretty conservative and right wing and pro business. I feel like you were going to say something, Angela. Oh, okay.
No, I just love that, that it's red. And that's where being able to see people's stories that don't look like what you expect is freaking important. But also the idea that people would call you to ask questions that took 2 minutes of Googling is just, wild.
Yeah.
We talk about how people are, outsourcing their brains to AI, but like people were already outsourcing their brains to like as much as possible. This is just like the next, like, how much less can I use my brain?
Yeah. And because they would call and they knew what questions to ask us too. They knew what they could get away with and all of that. But then there were other people who would call and be like, my Roth IRA has had 100K sitting in it for 30 years and hasn't grown at all. Why isn't it growing? And I had to break it to them that they should have been investing it correctly this whole time. So it was those conversations, those educational conversations that was like, I don't need to manage these rich white people's money for them. They're fine. I need to help the people that don't understand that not knowing how to invest will delay your retirement by entire decades if you don't understand it now. So today's gay agenda, we're going to talk about crushing debt without shame, using credit cards to boost your credit and make passive income, and investing for early retirement, and how I do it as a low income earner. So I like to talk about how to leverage debt because, as we know, there's a lot of shame around having debt and a lot of stigma around it, and how debt is something that we need to just like get rid of and eliminate. But it's really not like that. Rich millionaires, billionaires get into debt all the time. They just call it leverage and use it strategically so that they can borrow money for cheap and grow the money that they have or don't want to put toward a house or something. They grow it on the side and just make it grow in different ways. So I've learned how to leverage debt to grow my business. I've never been in personal credit card debt ever, but when I was like 33, I realized that I didn't want to dip into my 401k to invest $10,000 for a business coaching program. There was no financial aid for business coaching like there was for my master's degree. So I started taking out business credit cards and leveraging debt in that way. I paid $10,000 for a 6-month business coaching mastermind. And I remember my ex being like, fuck that. And that's for a group program. I wouldn't even do that for one-on-one. And then I made $43,000 in 6 months because I showed up and did the work and made sales. And needless to say, we broke up very quickly. That relationship was not aligned. But I will say that in order to think about debt as strategically as something that you leverage like a CEO, it comes to awareness. A lot of people come to me wanting a debt payoff plan and I ask them, okay, well, what's the interest rate on your card or your loan? And they don't know. And that's the first step, is to just be aware of your interest rate, because that is the price you are paying to borrow the money. And it's not annual, it's daily. I see it as a daily charge. You take that percentage rate and divide it by 365. That's how much money you are paying every day to borrow money, and it compounds itself. Again, not to shame you, I just say these words neutrally. It can be just neutral. It does not have to have an emotional charge that money might have because your parents didn't go to therapy and they didn't know how to process their emotions, and money supercharged everybody and pissed people off, but we needed it and we wanted it, but we didn't, and we made us feel evil. It doesn't have to be that deep. So when it comes to leveraging debt, I like to use debt payoff calculators. I personally have $16,000 in business credit card debt. And I say in business debt because as a business owner, I've learned to be really good at separating my personal and business finances. So this 16K is not touching my personal credit score at all because I open business credit cards with my tax ID associated with my business, Travel with Charly, money coaching. So I fearlessly and intentionally still get into debt. I did this last year for the first time, where I took out 0% business APR cards to pay for coaching programs that were like 8K and 2000K. And I've made my investment back. And then last year I was like, let me see what happens if I don't pay off this card in full. Because that's what you're told. You're told always pay off cards in full, on time, which that's what I do for my personal credit cards. But when it comes to business, America is pro-business. The government cares about businesses way more than people. And you get nice tax write-offs for a business that you don't for your personal, like for business interest. When you pay for business expenses on a business credit card, you can get your business interest payments as a tax write-off, which is, yeah, boom, wild. I wish that could happen for personal credit cards, but yeah, our government's pro-business. So yeah, I paid 8K for one mastermind program and then 2K for another. And all of last year, I had a revolving total balance of around 12K across multiple business credit cards that I took out. And I got bonus intro offers. So my investor brain is like, okay, if I'm going to invest a fuck ton in business coaching, not only will I make my investment back by showing up and doing the work and getting coached and implementing and marketing daily and sending emails multiple times a week and running my podcast. I will also get money through bonus intro offers where I spend 8K and get 200 back, spend 6K, get 500 back in perks. Whenever I have a large expense coming up, or even if I don't, if I know I'm going to spend 3K to exist a month in America, I'm going to take out a new credit card to get free money and passive income from credit card companies. So that's what I do when it comes to investing in my business. I don't shy away from business expenses. I just see it as a means to an end. But how can I make as much money as possible for spending the money that I am spending? So I did that for last year. And I was like, okay, let's see if this will work out. And then I remember I took out 2 business cards. And then I remember calling Capital One when the year was almost up, when that 0% APR was almost up. And I called them. I was like, when's the interest rate going to kick in? And they were like, September 24th. And I was like, okay, what's the interest rate going to be? Because it's important to just be aware of the interest rate, because they're not trying to shove it in your face. These companies don't want you to know that you know what their interest rates are, because that is their business model. If everybody were to crush their debt and not avoid it, they would be out of business. But debt is a $1 trillion industry in America, and they profit off of avoidance and non-awareness. So the 0% APR of my 12K hit that week of September 24th. And then I had cash on the side, and I was like, I'm going to crush this debt immediately. So that week when the interest was about to start kicking in, I crushed 12K in debt. And so that entire year, I didn't pay any interest. But it was nice to not have to pay off that card in full and use that 12K to max out my Roth IRA or solo 401k. As somebody who has not had a sweet employer match for 5 years, I have to aggressively invest. If I don't, I will not retire. So debt to me is a way that I can retire early so that I can grow my business without dipping into my 401k. I don't treat my retirement accounts like emergency funds. I always look at being strategic at using credit cards in this way for my business. And for my personal, I take out 4 to 5 personal credit cards a year, and my credit score is almost at 800. It has been above 800, but right now it's at 795 because I've applied for 4 credit cards that gave me like $1,000 in cash back across 4 of them. And I literally will open them, get the free passive income and cash back, and it's going to boost my overall access to credit. So now I have like 95K across several different cards, but I don't use them. Once I hit the bonus intro offer where it's like spend 1K, get 200 back, I don't use those cards anymore. I literally just use it to build my credit score and get free passive income from these fucking credit card companies. So instead of being afraid of them, I'm making them my bitch. So I see the chat popping off. I just want to see if there's questions.
I'll let you know. Right now it's really just kind of chatter.
Okay.
You're good.
Yeah. So if anybody has questions about credit cards, I know I throw in like the personal versus the business, but I hope the point lands that it's not something to avoid and fear. Like, I want you to do the opposite of what these credit card companies want you to do. They want you to avoid knowing what the interest rates are. They don't want you to pay off these cards in full. The way bonus intro offers are designed to work is to lure people in where they see a shiny amount of like spend 3K and get 600 back. But most of those people are not able to pay off that 3K on time. So the credit card company, gives them 600, but then they end up generating 2 or 3 or 4 times that in interest payments. So that's why it is important.
And this conversation is very different than a lot of the typical advice, especially for people who are on the lower income scale, right? Most of us are primed and hear about the Dave Ramsey style, which is no debt at all. But there really can be a more extended conversation about how to utilize debt. And it is okay, even at a lower income, as long as you are aware and know what you're doing with it and have a plan. So thank you for covering that for sure, because we don't hear very many people talk about it for the lower income side.
Yes, that's what I'm here for. Okay. And this is kind of like a repeat because debt and credit are enmeshed together. But like I say, I use credit cards to make money and passive income. As somebody who doesn't pay myself more than 45K, I'm always looking at how I can make a couple $100 here and there. How can I get paid to spend the money I'm spending anyway to exist in America, to go to the grocery store and buy eggs? How can I just get money from these companies instead of them getting money from me? So yeah, like I said, my credit score is 795, and I open 4 to 5 cards a year. And I say that because so many people, a lot of my clients are terrified of, oh, but if I open a credit card, doesn't that ding my score? And it's like, yeah, but then if you pay off the card on time, as close to in full as humanly possible, that is what matters, not the amount of credit cards that you open. When I check my credit score, the FICO detail thingy, it does say like the reason why my credit score is not popping, it's not 850 is because I go cray cray and open so many cards at a time, but it's still excellent. And it's not like I'm trying to take out a mortgage or take out a car loan. So I don't need it to be in the 800s right now. But if I did, then I would like pump the brakes on getting free money and opening so many credit cards. But for now, YOLO, give me my money.
There's a comment in the chat. There are as many myths and shame around credit cards as there is sex.
Ooh, yes, I'm here to not shame any of these things. Let's talk about it. So much shame as I'm wearing my harness. Yay to the kink community. I am in Portland. What's new? It has sucked me into its vortex.
And the advice from their average Joe is as solid as sex ed guidance from a 12-year-old boy. I mean, accurate. Sorry, I digress from reading the comments, but I figured you would appreciate that.
I see Regina's talking about the 524 rule. Yeah, I learned about that when I first got into the credit card points game when it was 2018, when I was a broke tour guide driving a Ford Transit van cross country from New York to LA, leading cross country camping trips. I was so butch and handy. Catch me never again. I'm handy online now. I do not want to pitch a tent or sleep on the floor ever again. But that's a lot of the dude bro tourist guides would take out bonus intro offer cards and pay for business expenses and get reimbursed. And then that's how they could afford to like live in December, was with credit card points. So that was when I decided to do the same thing. And then I spent 6 months backpacking in Latin America, where our hotel was like 20 bucks a night in Colombia. And then just kept opening up more and more cards. And I feel like I kept waiting to see my credit score to tank when the more cards I opened, but it really didn't. Like it would tank by a few points and then it'd shoot right back up because I kept adding extra lines of credit to show lenders that I was good at paying off these cards. But Chase can be shady. Chase, in my opinion, does have the best perks, hands down, but they will limit you and say, if you apply to 4 cards in 24 months, no matter if it's with us, with Capital One, with Amex, and you won't be able to apply for a Chase card again. So that's something to keep in mind. Like that limit is there because it's a Chase rule, but that's not a personal limit. I've opened like 10 cards in 2 years. My credit score is fine.
And business cards don't count towards the 524.
Yeah, my business cards don't count because it's with a separate tax ID. That's why it's important to have separation of personal and business finances too. So how do you keep track of the admin load? It's really not a lot of admin load. For me, the most admin load is like, for example, I took out, these words are going to sound so weird coming out of my mouth, but I took out a Wells Fargo card, even though I talk so much shit about Wells Fargo because their bank accounts are crap, but I want their money from them. So I took out one of those Wells Fargo Expedia One Key cards because as a full-time pet sitter, and I am in between pet sits, I will stay with friends or I'll stay in nice bougie hotels. So I do use Expedia a lot. So they had a bonus intro offer to spend 1,000 and get like 201 key points and a credit on all this stuff. And so for me, all the admin is to just like pay it off, hit the bonus intro offer and not touch it again. I'll still check for fraud purposes, but I have all my cards in my Schwab centralized area for fraud purposes. Because I have had some people like fraudulently use my credit card. Some rando used one of my American Airlines cards to try building a bear in Orlando. And I was like, no, you cannot build a bear. And so I had that card frozen. So, but that's why I say my top credit cards, I only really use 2, y'all. I use the Chase Sapphire Reserve card. And yes, I feel like the $795 annual fee is definitely worth it. Like it's already paying for itself. I got $150 already in StubHub credits to go to the symphony and $150 in dining rewards. at nice restaurants and in hotel stays. These are all bougie things that I enjoy. I know a lot of people freaked out when they raised the fee, but I'm like, is this worth the investment? Do I make back my money in perks as a single person with no dependents? It's not like I'm paying for groceries for kids. It's just me. As somebody who doesn't spend a lot, I don't pay for rent. I spend maybe 2 or 3K. I get weekly massages. It's not like I'm deprived. And yes, that credit card does pay for itself. And I love the perks that encourage me to be bougie. I was never a DoorDasher before, but with the DoorDash credit, they got me good. And now I'm loving DoorDashing. And I'm like, oh, is this what rich people do? They get people to just bring them food instead of having to cook. I like this. So I like the card because it gives me like reasons to test and try out what kind of bougie perks do you want to try out now, which it was like that for the airport lounges. I was never like raised to think the airport lounges were for me. I thought that was for evil billionaires. And now when I go to the airport lounge, I'm like, these people look exactly the fucking same. They just know what's up. And you get free food. And I don't even drink alcohol that much anymore for my chronic health issues, but I love knowing there's a lounge. It's going to be a nice, quiet space for me to not be overstimulated, and where I can check the flight updates on the screen. And no, there's going to be free hot food, and don't have to worry about buying a cold $20 sandwich. So that's my number one card. And the only card I really use is the Amex Blue Cash Preferred card. It has a $95 annual fee, and you get 6% cash back in groceries and streaming. I don't even have a car, but when I rent a car, I use it for 3% cash back off gas. And I refer that card like crazy because I really believe everybody should have that card. And that card pays for itself in referrals and just cash back alone for me buying groceries for myself as one person in a one-person household. So it's really not a lot of admin for me. It's fun for me to be like, oh, what perks can I get now? Oh, I can use the StubHub credit from the reserve to go see Dolly at the Symphony, since Dolly Parton is my latest hyperfixation. And she just turned 80 and she is still with us. Rest in peace, Catherine O'Hara. So it's really not a lot of admin for me personally, because I've decided it for it not to be, because it's worth the investment. Everything I do, I feel like, is it worth it? Yes or no?
Charlie, I'm answering a question for you. So it was a Chase Sapphire Reserve and the Amex Blue Cash?
Yeah, preferred.
Preferred.
I don't like
And this is like a really big rabbit hole. So if this is the first time folks have really heard much about travel hacking, like, it's a thing. We have one of our insiders, Megan, who's really knowledgeable on this stuff, in the chat too. So, if you are really intrigued by this, like, there is a lot of information out there, and it can get very, yes, it's a really big topic because there are so many perks, and it is a way to do a ton of travel for very cheap or free. So if you've not done it before and now you're interested, there is a whole lot of information out there to learn how to do this. And some people are the 5 to 10 cards a year folks, and some people are the like one every other year. There's nothing that says that like there is a minimum or maximum that you have to do when it comes to travel hacking. But there is a lot.
Credit card churning. It's not all travel hacking.
True. And bank bonuses. There's like lots of, once you start down the rabbit hole, there are lots of opportunities out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think somebody mentioned about closing cards. I only close the cards if they're not worth the annual fee. So I really don't close a lot. I still have that shitty Bank of America cashback card that I opened in college. Like, it's lurking out there in the ether. I don't have the physical card, but it's there and it shows up on my credit report as my oldest credit history. So if it's free, then there's no reason to close the card. It's only adding to your overall access and credit history. The point is to show lenders that you're able to have all this temptation, but not give into it and still be disciplined as much as possible, as one can be, about paying it off in full on time. That's the number one biggest factor, is like on time payments and keeping your utilization below 30% as well. So yeah, instead of seeing it as an annual fee, see it as an investment. And if it's going to be a return on your investment, and you can experiment. I got into the Amex Platinum card. I experimented for a whole year because I spent a bunch of money to move to Indianapolis for my stockbroker job. And after a year, I was like, these rewards are ghetto. I like the Chase Reserve more, because the Amex Platinum at the time, it didn't allow you the flexibility of cash back, which is important to me. As somebody who doesn't make a lot, cash back is important. Higher redemption value for different categories is important. I ended up just getting a fuck ton of Cheesecake Factory gift cards and eating so much tiramisu Cheesecake Factory that year. And I was like, and I called to cancel the card. And they're like, actually, we have this Amex Blue card. And because I knew what to ask for, what are the perks, what's in it for me, and what's the fee, I ended up closing that card and opening the Amex Blue over the phone. I asked if I could downgrade the card, because that's another thing you could do. If it has a fee and you're not into it, always ask if you can downgrade to a free card. So it doesn't hurt your access to credit. But even if you close it, it's not the end of the world. I closed a few cards. I've closed all the airline cards I've ever opened, because I'm an airline slut. I'm not loyal to Delta or any airlines. I just open those cards for the free money. And I'm like, this companion pass is not worth it for me because I'm single, flying solo. So we're going to close those cards, and I'm doing just fine. So it's really not the end of the world. If you have to close a card, just look into how can I replace this card with a better card instead, or what's the lesson I learned? So, okay, the Schwab Amex Platinum does allow you to liquidate MRs at one cent. Okay, Schwab Amex. Yeah, I saw that they had a separate one, but yeah, like it's personal preference. Some people might get excited about some things and other people don't. It's really your preference, but I invite you to play around and see what tickles your fancy. So, on to investing. Y'all probably know this, but it's just like a good overview of investing in simple forms. What is it and why is it important? Because it helps you own the means of production. I feel like, especially being in Portland, I'm queer as fuck, and I'm always around queers, and they like to think that they're anti-capitalist because they don't invest. But I'm like, actually, capitalism is fine if you don't invest. The stock market is doing just fine if you decide not to invest. How about you own the means of production and give it a communist spin? Because that's what it is. Because we all have to go to the store and buy products and buy phones anyway. We might as well get money from these companies instead. That is my theme in life. Get money from the companies instead of just giving them all our money, so that we don't have to work for these companies or just consume forever. It helps you build passive income, so you don't have to work more than you want to. I feel like people ask me what age I'm trying to retire or whatever, what age I'm going to start withdrawing from my retirement accounts, but I really don't have an age. To me, retirement is a number, but at 35, yeah, I don't make a lot, but I've already unlocking a lot of time freedom. Like today, I woke up without an alarm and worked, and then like painted this painting for my friend, and then took a nap and cooked. And so for me, retirement, the definition is to do even more of the things I love and only work because I want to. I don't see myself not ever working. I see myself being somebody who wants to do something fulfilling for the rest of my life while taking vacations and long breaks. Those are essential. So I think retirement, the definition of it is starting to shift and change, and be more to like personal preference, rather than at 65, you're going to retire and play golf and sit by the beach for 20 years until you die. Like, it doesn't have to be like that. So again, it's just some more basics. People ask where to open the investment accounts. Your employer, 401k, 403b, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard are some good low-cost brokerage firms. I worked at Schwab, and I like their customer service. They're responsive. I don't feel like they have me on hold for too long. And so that's where I have all of my self-managed investment accounts. And I like how you can link your outside savings accounts, checking accounts, and your outside credit cards into one portal. So I love logging in every day, and I check my net worth just out of curiosity to see how the stock market's doing, because my net worth is so heavily tied to the stock market. As a low-income earner, I have to. Like, this is how I'm making up for all the last time I have not had a six-figure salary, is by investing aggressively. So I like logging into Schwab. It's my personal preference to check my net worth, because it's all connected. And in my opinion, the most important investment accounts are the Roth accounts. I'm a Roth freak. Roth for life, Roth 401ks, 403bs, Roth IRA, health savings accounts. And if it has a limit, it's a juicy account. I have a taxable individual brokerage account, but I call it the side hoe. Right now, it has about 38K in it, and I have not invested a dime in it since 2020 hit. When 2020 happened, I invested what I thought was extra money into my brokerage account, while still trying to max out my Roth 401k. I didn't max out because I was only making 45K and I was putting half my paycheck in there. So I put extra money in my individual taxable brokerage account. But when I worked as a stockbroker, I quickly learned from mostly the rich older white people which accounts to prioritize. And like January 1st would hit and they'd be selling stock from their individual taxable accounts and dumping it in their IRAs into their retirement accounts that are tax advantaged. And I'm on team pay taxes now so you don't have to later. Because when I was a broker, I would see people of all ages invest. And it was really interesting to see the 72, 73-year-olds who were forced to start taking out required minimum distributions, which are just morbid calculations the IRS makes based off of how much you have and how long they think you're going to keep living. So if you have 10 million in your account, they're going to be like, okay, you're of this age and you have traditional pre-tax money, start taking out $1 million a year because you owe us 200K in taxes. And it was always the people that called us and were annoyed about having to take out the required minimum distributions, while the people that were the Roth freaks that just had the inherited generational knowledge of doing Roth post-tax, pay taxes. So the decades of growth, you don't have to worry about tax brackets or taxes or any of that. That money is yours. And also, I'll say a lot of people who are like six-figure earners or make a lot, they're just so bought into the pre-tax life. And they're like, but I've done calculations and I'm probably going to pay less in taxes when I'm retired. It's like, that's fine too, but you're still going to have to pay federal taxes. A lot of people do move to states like Washington, Florida for no income tax. But also, if you want to build generational wealth and you want to have whoever inherits your money, like foundations, people, loved ones, chosen family, if you don't do Roth, they're also going to have to pay taxes. Like that's how messed up this is, that it literally follows you until after you die. Like if you do traditional pre-tax and somebody inherits a traditional pre-tax account, they're also going to have a timeline of required minimum distributions to pay taxes on the money that you could have paid like 50, 40 years ago.
I think this is where, this is how we end up with really long conversations in WPF, is that like there is no, I'm a big believer in that there's no like one right answer, except for not like opting out is the wrong answer. But after you like say, yes, I'm opting in to like setting myself up for the future, then we can have a conversation of like why you're picking what account at what age and what amount. But like more than anything, it's like, let's at least get over the hurdle of this is what we're doing. And then we can talk about all the different ways to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just from my experience and what I saw, like gaining insight on what it's actually like to have to take out money as a 75-year-old who did this 40 years ago. Or it's just wild to see like the consequences of people's actions in real time in ways I was never, ever exposed to. So that's why this is something that I'm a big believer in, especially as a low income earner. Like I'd rather pay taxes now, and I pay myself a low amount to keep myself in a low tax bracket. So when I do sell stock from my individual account, I'm paying no taxes because I'm focusing on stocks that I've had in for over a year or more too. So there's different ways to leverage not paying taxes legally. And having an accountant is definitely helpful. I think people are surprised that I have an accountant as somebody who pays myself 45K, but having an accountant is the reason I know that I can write off my business credit card interest, or I can save doing this versus that. Like that is their job. Like, a good accountant's job is to save you money down the line. It's just another investment. Health savings accounts. Shout out to health savings accounts. These limits are super low. They're like less than 5K for single people. I think it's like 8K for families, but these accounts are triple tax benefited. And a lot of my clients get health savings accounts employer matches too. That's free money. Get the match is like the minimum you should get. That is free money, but I'm all about trying to max out these accounts first before putting money into like an individual taxable account, because you also might not have your job forever. Like you might lose your job tomorrow, or you might quit like I did. And I'm so happy I put half my paycheck in my 401k when I was making barely anything. Because when I quit my job, that account had 30K in it, and it's almost doubled already in 5 years. And now it's at about 50K, which is wild. In just 5 years, it's almost doubled itself. And it's just going to keep compounding even faster and faster. Like my total net worth is 225K just from doing this, from maxing out my Roth IRA every year for just the past 7 years. And I'm not huge on, investment calculators, or I'll reach Coast FI in this year. But I was like, let's just see what happens if I keep on the same train for 5 years, and 5 or 10 years or something. Yeah, it was like 5 years maxing out my Roth IRA, like 7K. Or 8K with my 401k, and then I'll reach $1 million in 5 years, which that blew my mind, because the more you invest, the faster it compounds itself. I think after I hit the 100K, that's when I really started to see very volatile movement. But you got to be used to that. Like I remember when the tariff shit show happened, my net worth tanked, but I held on, and holding is a strategy. People talk about what should I do, buy, sell, but holding is just as much of a strategy as buying and selling. My net worth dipped by 30K with the tariff shit show. And I was like, he is manipulating the stock market on purpose. And they're not even lying at this point. He literally tweeted, now is a great time to buy stock. And then the next day, the stock market shot up. Oh no, we're not doing the tariffs. So my net worth went from like 170K to 140K. And then right now it's at 225K, with me just having invested like $13,000 last year. It's grown by 70K. It's just wild. But I check my net worth to train my brain, because it's only going to get more and more volatile. At this level, my money goes up and down by 5K in a day, but at the millionaire level, it's going to go up and down by 50K in a day. So real
Regina, have any thoughts on that as someone who has hit that million mark?
It definitely does. And I think you learn to just look at it as a number and start to enjoy in some ways, like seeing that and looking at patterns. And, you have your immediate living expenses for a short-term period, whatever that means to you, put away in other places, and the rest is just a ride. Like I'm pretty immune to seeing those bumps at this point.
Yeah. And I know A Purple Life talks about it as exposure therapy. She checks it regularly for that reason. And I think there are two very like different ways to go about it. It's either check it on like a once a month, quarterly, once a year, and that's it, and not again. Or check it really frequently when it's up and down, so that you get used to it. And I think depending on, where your brain's at, one is probably going to be the better situation for you.
Yeah. Like I say, I do it daily, because I'm not making it about me. I'm not making it about like my worth as a person. I detach my self-worth from my net worth, and just see it as, this is what the stock market's doing. And then I'll Google, why is the stock market up or down? Like there's always a reason. It's not a random thing that happens. That's something I quickly learned. That is not random. The stock market and what the government does or global events are intrinsically tied to one another.
I did check in to look. I was curious. One of my more recent jumps was definitely like 50K right after Thanksgiving. It's like the 11/27 or 28. I'd have to dig in a little closer, but yeah, there's like a 2-day gap, and it's like 50 or 60K jump. So that gets to be something you tend to see at least once a year. Some significant jumps, and I think you can get used to it. But if it really bothers you, maybe you are somebody who just checks a few times a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how I invest as a low income earner, I personally max the shit out of my Roth IRA the first week of January. Like, well, everybody's hungover or whatever for New Year's Eve. I'm like transferring 7,500, and I budget for it, and I hold on to it instead of investing it in my individual taxable account. I'm waiting, and I transfer it. Like in December, I had like 15K in cash, and I transferred like half of it. And of course, I had the scarcity mindset of, oh my God, but that's half my savings. And it's like, yeah, but we've done this every year for 7 years and you'll be fine. And I invested immediately. I personally don't dollar cost average. I invest immediately so that I capture the quarterly dividends every year instead of trying to like time the stock market and all that stuff. I've been there, done that with trying to time stuff and everything. And at this point, I'm just like, no, I'm going to do this on repeat. When I'm 70 years old, I won't look back and say, oh, I'm glad I waited an extra week in June of 2025. No, I'm going to be like, thank God I knew to just max out my IRA ASAP and move the F on with my day. So,
And then there is a comment about able accounts too. For anyone who has a disability that onsets younger, able accounts are also a really big deal. So thanks for commenting about that.
I do have some interesting caveats I'm not going to go into too far here for Charlie's presentation, but if you're somebody who's kind of at the cusp on subsidies and things around like healthcare, there are potentially some other ways that you might think about things, because that can sometimes be a couple $1,000s difference in if you owe a lot more in healthcare. So I have that quandary that I deal with every year, and it depends on well, only recently, but I have for the last couple of years, and it changes whether I do a Roth or a traditional IRA based on what my taxes look like that year. So for some people, that's my one lower income person caveat is make sure it's not going to totally mess up your healthcare situation if you're right at a cusp of a subsidy cliff.
yeah. And for Roth versus traditional IRAs, it's important to know what your tax bracket is and salaries, because they do say like every year the limits change and also the salary requirements change versus if you're single and married, if you can contribute directly to a Roth or do the backdoor. Like I help a ton of my clients do just the backdoor conversions and move money and pay taxes in this year, or spread it out if they have 6 figures and are not trying to have a massive tax bill. I can also spread it out. And talk with an accountant about that. Yeah, I invest in the same low cost, boring, large cap stocks that track the stock market. I do like growth funds and just stock market mirror funds. They're all super tech heavy, but whatever. That's just what it is right now. Most of American industries that are the richest companies are big tech. It is what it is. I did not choose this system. The system chose me. So it's just a means to an end. And I invest extra money in my solo Roth 401k. It functions similarly to the Roth IRA. Since I don't have an employer 401k, I've opened up an extra 401k for myself that's Roth. And last year I invested like 6k in it. The goal is always for me to max it out like an employee would, like the 23k. But I didn't last year. So far this year, I made a couple $100 pet sitting, stripping, and I put some of that money in my solo Roth 401k as well. So I've invested like $850 in that account so far. So yeah, my strategy is just any extra money here and there, just invest it. And by doing this, my net worth has grown by over 100K in 2 years, which is wild to me still. I can't wrap my head around how much it's grown just by knowing what buttons to click. And yeah, and future me is taken care of, which is the whole reason why I decided to invest, because I was like, future me is not going to have the energy that me in my 20s has. And I'm 35 and I'm already tired, and so grateful to my past self for just doing this. Yeah, and I invest in low cost index funds. There's mutual funds, ETFs. I personally just do the mutual funds. You buy and they process at the end of the day. I used to be about like ETFs and day trading and single company stocks, and I've made money that way, but then I've lost thousands of dollars staying on to companies that I held on way too long that were my day trading stocks that ended up going bankrupt. And I learned my lesson. I got a tax write-off to spread across 2 years because it was so much of a loss, but I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just like, just keep putting it in the same boring low cost index funds that do their job. And I love sharing this chart. This was one of my recent clients. She had a robo-advisor with Schwab, which I also had that Schwab robo-advisor that picks investments for you and diversifies in like 20 different funds and makes you feel like such a boss and like you're so cool. And then I just helped her compare the crappy funds that she was in, that she was paying more in the expense ratios in fees. than in the stock market. So the dotted line is just S&P 500, top 500 companies, and the funds she was in were all funds below that. So I've helped her, like, each one just sell out of thousands of dollars in these funds that are just not doing their job, and they were more expensive. And SWLGX is also one of the funds. Again, it's not advice, not for your situation, but it's showing you an example of the variations and what it looks like to compare funds on top of each other instead of just seeing them alone in isolation over the past 1 year. Whenever I look at stocks and compare them, I'm always trying to go far back as possible. 10 years, how has it done over the past 10 years? And how has it done since COVID hit in 2020? I'm always looking at that April 2020 to see how companies reacted.
Where did you generate this from, Charly? If somebody wanted to.
Oh, this is Schwab's compare tool.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever you go to a stock profile, right next to the sell button, it's going to have the 3 little dotted lines, and that's your best friend. Like, this is the tool that I use to compare all my stocks against the stock market. So yes, it's a lifesaver. So I know we only have
and pretty much all the large brokerage companies have a similar-ish one. Regina and I are both in Vanguard, and there is a similar chart that you can find there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure Fidelity, Vanguard, they have them. I invest in Vanguard funds, VTI. There's a lot of crossover, cross-pollination. So if you're wondering about working with me, I am taking 6-month money coaching clients. We log into your accounts together and move money to high yield savings from checking accounts. This group is probably on top of their high yield savings, but this is my general presentation for the people who have the checking accounts with Wells Fargo and need to break up with them and start earning way more in interest in free high yield savings accounts. I help y'all with the credit card rewards, boosting credit, coming up with personalized plan for you. I help you roll over old 401ks and make sure they're invested and invest across multiple accounts and organize everything in a clear dashboard. And yeah, I've helped all my clients go from making pennies in interest to thousands by just switching banks. And I've helped clients crush 33K in debt and boost their credit scores by 100 plus points in just a short amount of time. And getting my clients into the airport lounges. And I helped one client who, she was a business owner. She was queer. She was in her 40s and she had some old 401ks lying around. And I was like, we need to find that money. That is your money. And she thought she only had a couple hundred or thousand laying around, which is still a lot when you think of how much money that can grow in 20 years. And she found $141,000 laying around in an old 15-year-old 401k rotting there in cash. If she had known to invest it, it would have easily been millions of dollars. But you don't know what you don't know. And then not only did I help her find that account, but in my 6-month coaching, we had time for her to be able to invest it in the right accounts and connect with an accountant to do the conversion, all of these other moving parts seamlessly and help you.
And cash, having your investments in cash is such a common thing that happens. So if that is you or has been you, don't, beat yourself up about it too badly, because it is something that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it's never too late to just invest that shit. The whole point of investment accounts is to invest it because the interest rates in them are crap. You might as well just have your cash sitting in a checking account than in an investment account. I have zero in cash in all of my investment accounts at all. So yeah. So some details about my money coaching. You can learn more at my website, unicornmillionaire.com. I'm getting a whole new sexy rebrand done. So just bear with me. Some of the pages are still in progress. But coaching is $6K or 2 payments of $3,100. You get bi-weekly coaching calls with me, one-on-one daily messaging support in between calls. So you have to wait to meet with me to ask me questions or to send me updates about anything you're going through. You get access to my full money coaching curriculum full of classes like this, how to be a Roth freak, how to crush debt, boost credit, and business mindset, because a lot of my clients are also business owners, also 9-to-5ers or 9-to-5ers trying to start a side hustle to diversify their income streams. And you get step-by-step investing guidance And if you book a sales call during this class or this evening, really, and sign up for coaching, you can get a free extra coaching call, $500 value. Yay! Okay. I think I copied that, so I can put the link in the chat of my website so you can connect with me there. You can see me twerking on Instagram at Traveler Charly with a Y. And yeah, we can do Q&A now. Thank you for having me.
All right, we can, let's see, have anybody come off mute if you want. And also, we can also wrap up our recording and give folks a couple minutes off recording